That was her. We're just looking back and it's like,
I will be sure. A lot of tax fees. Really frustrated the other day.
Here we go. Before we get started with the regular meeting, the regular August meeting, we have a tax rate hearing. Do we have anyone who would like to speak on me regarding the tax rate hearing?
I've not had anyone request to speak.
Do we have anyone here that would like to speak with regard to the tax rate hearing? Okay, I believe that's all we have to do.
Comments, questions from the board?
We are at the floor of our tax rate, correct?
Yes, we're at the absolute minimum, $2.75 operating levy.
Which isn't necessarily a place we want to be, but
Not perpetually. I think right now we're managing expenses in a way. We decided that kind of our floor for fund balance was 30%. That gives us some money to, air quotes there, live off and still remain or sustain a buffer between us and any incidental or emergency spending that we would have. That does not last forever as we're making progress. So in the future, we would need to discuss the potential for an increase in the operating levy, but we're not near there now.
and you could probably make the argument that we're not necessarily keeping up with regard to, we're holding our own, but with regard to salaries and maintenance to facilities.
Absolutely. Those two items in particular would be the lion's share of any of our fund balance over and above 30% that's being used. It is going towards salaries, benefits, and then improving and maintaining facilities.
But also given the uncertainty we have in the economy right now, it's probably not a great time to be doing that either.
It's
We're
not.
taking a look at that.
We are lucky. We'll talk a little bit later on this issue. Our assessed value went up about 5.6% at the county level. And so that helps us out, and it generates about $123,000 in revenue that we couldn't have anticipated when we set our budget. So we do have some breathing room, but we also made full use of our budget. We also, in combination, we'll talk a little bit about this with the ASBR. We thought we'd be at a 34.6% fund balance at the end of last year. We ended up at 37.11, about 2.5% better off than we thought. So that'll leave us some room. There's a few agenda items that when we did our budget workshop this past summer that we said, you know what, maybe we'll put those off till next year because we were getting close. Those may come up as options through an amended budget at some point this year.
Very good. Any other comments from part of the board? With that, I call the regular meeting of the Osage County R2 School Board to order. We welcome all our guests. Thank you all for being here. Could I get a motion to approve the agenda?
I move we approve the agenda.
Can I get a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, raise your right hand. All those opposed, the same. Do we have anybody wishing to speak at open forum?
No one turned in the comment card.
Very good. Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move we approve the consent agenda.
Can I get a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, the same. All right, we've got 6 items on the consent agenda. Does anybody have anything they would like to discuss with any one of those? If not, we'll just look right through them. There's a sub list, approved list of contacts for DESI, eligibility criteria for free and reduced meals, approval of a van trip, an FFA trip, and approval of the open session minutes. Anybody have anything there that they wanted to discuss? If not, we'll just blast right through them. Can I get a motion to approve the sub list?
I'll make a motion to approve the sub list.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All those in favor, raise your hand. Opposed, the same. Can I get a motion to approve the list of contacts for DESI?
I move we approve the list of contacts for DESI.
Can I get a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, the same. Approval for eligibility criteria for free and reduced meals. Can I get a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the eligibility criteria for the free and reduced meals.
Can I get a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor, raise your hand. Opposed, the same. Approval of the band overnight trip. All those in, or I'm gonna, I was getting ready to jump right to the vote. Can I get a motion to approve the band overnight trip to Orlando?
I'll make a motion to approve the band overnight trip to Orlando.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All those in favor, raise your hand. That looked like a fun trip. Can I get an approval of the FFA? Can I get a motion to approve the FFA overnight trip?
I'll make a motion to approve the FFA overnight trip.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All those in favor, raise your hand. Opposed, the same. And lastly, approval of the regular open session minutes. Can I get approval to approve the regular, can I get a motion to approve the regular open session minutes?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
anybody have any corrections or comments on that? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, the same. All right, next up, approval and transfer payment of bills. Anybody have seen anything there?
How do we get to go on the band trip? Huh?
Yeah. I will tell you, as a chaperone, I'll bring with you these years, it's a lot of work.
Went on that trip.
I did, I am flying that. Other parents. We put just a bunch of Chromebooks, that was the only thing I noticed.
Look like that, that'll probably be in your technology report. You'll talk about that. Okay. Anybody else see anything in the transfer and payment of bills they want to discuss? All right, can I get a motion to approve the transfer and payment of bills?
I move we approve the transfer and payment of bills.
Can I get a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, the same. All right, time for report, special education report.
Good evening. I can't believe it's been a year already since I did this last time. So, couple reminders, my formal, like full breakdown evaluation of the entire program, that's in December. So this is me just kind of giving you a little breakdown of what to expect for this fall, giving you an opportunity to ask any questions, anything like that, kind of see what we're forecasting, that sort of thing. So currently serving, this number is already wrong because we've got transfers in, transfers out. Right now it's actually sitting at 72. So we got a few more transfers in already, which is a great thing, and not a whole lot going out. I had one call today about somebody transferring. It was somebody that had transferred last year and they just kind of had messed up the enrollment forms. I don't know what happened there, but we're sitting at 72, but I expect that to fluctuate just a little bit. That also does not include anybody in our early childhood pre-K, because all those kids that went to kindergarten, or I'm sorry, that includes 5, but we typically teeter around that 10, 13, and 15 realm. Those kiddos have only been screened. They haven't been fully evaluated yet. We'll wrap those up in October. So you'll get a better idea of that true number for our December 1 count in my December report. 19 total students with 504s. And we just wrapped up last week our pre-K screenings, and we have 18 kids in the 2 classes we do in morning and afternoon. That may seem low, but we actually have 4 coming in from our 4 needing screened and evaluated from first steps. So we wanted to give ourselves a little bit of buffer room because it seems like we have a couple that are coming in with some pretty high needs, and we want to make sure we serve those kids effectively. So I would expect that number to also fluctuate a little bit coming up in that December count. All veterans, so just some other highlights that I want to point out. If you all could sit through some of those professional developments I sit with other directors, these ones I'm going to talk about right now are a rarity in the people I'm talking to. And I'm not just talking about ones that are in this area, all over the state. Having an all veteran staff or special education teachers is huge. Just the fact that there isn't anybody that has less than 5 years experience teaching these kiddos, which is just a huge win for everybody. All certified, non-certified staff positions have been filled, contingent upon one that we're going to talk about this evening. And then we actually found a K-5 curriculum that's aligned with the science of reading. So it's going right in with what they're teaching. at the K-5 level in the general education classroom, which is something that has been kind of on my, towards the front of my brain is we want to try and make it as cohesive as possible, because the goal is to ultimately close that gap and get these kiddos, if they can be, back in that general education classroom. What makes it very difficult, we're not aligning with whatever they're doing in the general education classroom. So this curriculum we found is spot on with what they're doing, and it's just going to be really helpful with those kids. Everyone's really excited about it. And the huge thing is, which is also unheard of in SPED curriculum, it's very adaptable. You can create that curriculum, create something for a student that's nonverbal, or a student that has 120 IQ, but maybe has some behavior issues or some other reasons that we have to pull out. So it's cohesive and it's adaptable across all ability levels, but we're still learning the same content, which I just think is huge. It's very, very, it's rare to find, and I'm glad we were able to snag that for our K-5 kiddos. Professional development, that's something that's just personally really important to me. I strive to always continue to do that for myself and promote that along with my staff. Just some things that I've done. I completed this last year, but it was a Zoom. And I don't know how many of you guys have ever had to do a PD on Zoom. I don't learn that way. It's just not. I just prefer it to be in person. And luckily it was in person this year. I attended in July, learned a lot, came back with some really good notes, some really good networking opportunities, and just some really good ideas to bring forward. Another just note to mention, our DESE compliance officer actually gave our transition teachers a shout out within this new directors conference, which was statewide. We had directors from the entire state, and our transition teachers, which are our high school teachers that are doing the crock pot meals, that are doing the store, they got a shout out across the board, which I was like blown away, which was just really cool to see. I know they're doing great things, but it's cool to have it be recognized by DESE. Speaking of which, transition training presentation, they were actually invited. I think, I don't know if you guys saw it on Facebook, but they actually gave a presentation about their kind of unique approach with the crock pot meals with the school store. Some other places are doing school store, but definitely with the crock pot meals, that's a pretty unique approach, and may make a little bit more work for them, because now we have other schools asking, hey, how do we do that? You know, what are the laws as far as, you know, yada yada. But they're tackling that head on and are already coming up with more ways to expand that program, which I love to see. Last winter, I guess technically, in February, I completed a CPI trainers training that was paid for by the Missouri School Board Association, which was a huge cost taken off of us. It's rare to have a trainer on staff. They're hard to find. They're expensive to employ or bring in if you need them to train. So I was glad that I got that opportunity to do so, which is allowed in September for our PD. We're going to come together. All SPED staff is going to have CPI, but then we're also going to coordinate planning things like, okay, our secretaries probably need to be, because there's going to be moments when a kid, if they're escalated in the office, it can't just be the principal thinking about that, or the nurse, or those types of situations. So we're going to really hammer down a solid list. But Missouri School Board Association has actually opted to pay for 50 trainings as well. So they're being very kind to us. I just got an email confirmation saying those are in the mail. So very exciting. That was something I got an email on and was like, heck yeah, we want 53 of those. And they run about $40 a piece. So that was a huge win for us to be able to do that. And it might open up some more opportunities for us to train people that we might have to nickel and dime it and go, okay, we'd love for 2 people in this hallway to have it, but for now, let's just do 1. That's going to open up some of those opportunities and just create a safer environment for our students. Just to give a very small piece of what CPI is, you might hear a misconception that it's a restraint training. 90% of it is de-escalation strategies, to the point where you shouldn't have to put your hands on a child. And it's a training to teach the educators in our building what that looks like if you absolutely have to. So I don't want it to get a negative connotation. It's a de-escalation training to be able to handle a kiddo that without that training, you probably would have to restrain. But 90% of it is teaching them how to de-escalate, how to recognize triggers and that sort of thing. So it's great for all staff to be able to do, and I'm happy to be able to have that certification to train them. That's going on in September, so that is that for PD. Oh, also I have no case in September. That's for all special education directors, process coordinators, that sort of thing. So I'm excited to go to that. As always, forward thinking. We don't do everything perfectly. We strive for it, but always want to promote that forward thinking and what can we do better, even if everything's going right. Our testing materials, we are very lucky. We have some neighbors that are good to us, and I can text them and say, hey, I've got a student that needs to be evaluated in a nonverbal IQ. They've been good to us to let us borrow it, but we've ran into a couple snags that we have, you all know federal requirements. We have to get this evaluation done in 60 days. Well, if they're in the middle of their heavy evaluation season, it's coming up too often for me to be comfortable with that we're kind of having to borrow and whatnot. So it's just something that I'm not planning on spending 20 grand and revamping all of our testing protocols, but just something that we're going to have to continue to chip away. And unfortunately, by the time we get to the end of it, the one that we did first is on its 3rd edition passed, and we're going to have to redo it again. So that's just one thing I want you all to be aware of, that there will be a desire to continue to update those testing materials in a fiscally responsible way. Implementation of a new IEP and evaluation program, FedTrack. You guys have heard that when Tyler SIS went to the wayside. That was what our programming was. It opened it up to looking at what other school districts do. You'll have a hard time finding a district that doesn't use FedTrack. We had a couple of kiddos that transferred in a process to which that would have caused that case manager to have 4 or 5 hours worth of work, not to mention a lapse in information being given to the teacher. So if we have somebody transfer in, it's impossible to know, or it would have been very impossible for the teachers in their schedule to be able to get that information in a quick way, especially at the beginning of the year with limited time, with meetings and that sort of thing. It was the coolest thing. I typed in, they were coming from Jeff. I typed in Jeff transfer request. We had every piece of documentation that we needed as far as special education, literally within 2 minutes. That also was because the person that I was requesting it from clearly was at their computer, but there was another situation from Herman. We had it within a day and it was all automatic. It was all because we have the same programming. So that to me is unmatched as far as when it comes to that data transfer and everything. The feedback I'm getting so far, just people playing around with it is all positive. I'm expecting some hiccups, but we'll take it on as it comes. But I have a very, my staff's very excited to have it because it will benefit them. Continuing to grow in co-teaching practices for K-12. It's a big push for our program. If possible, least restrictive environment is always the goal. You always want to limit how often you're pulling kids from special education away from their peers. So, but it's not just as simple as pushing in and saying, hey, good luck, good deal, you're with your peers. So that's a big emphasis that I'm pushing with my staff, and there'll be appropriate PDs to go along with that. But being able to productively co-teach. We have 2 teachers in the room. How are we utilizing both of their skill sets to benefit all people in the classroom? So that's just something that is going to be an intentional focus throughout this year. And I will keep you all updated. Hopefully I'll have a really solid update for you all at that full program evaluation in December. But I know I gave you a lot of information. What questions can I answer for you as far as forecasting?
Anyone?
I meant to include it and I forgot. I actually met with Lisa Grellner. We have a solid plan as far as her, how are we going to service those kiddos over there that get those services and whatnot. And we had a really positive meeting, a really positive bridge. Her and I are excited to work together, and we've already got some good things laid out. So last week, so that was something I was really happy with. So.
Good. We used to bus all of their kids here And then last year we started sending our support services to St. George. I think they like that quite a bit. It's way more convenient for them. It's better for their kids. Not spending time on buses. Seems like it's working really well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I made it known to her. I don't know, I can't speak to anybody before me, but we communicated a lot about how that was a desired focus of myself and her. It's not, I want to make that work for them just as much as she wants to make it work for them. So she knows if it becomes a situation where we have to have them come over here, I just made sure that it was very well pointed out that it's not because of any reason of Osage County or Zoo. It will be because of some factor outside of our control, which I think that is really positive, and we're in a good spot. I'm sorry, I didn't include that in there.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. Technology report.
Good evening, everyone. I'm sure you all have my report. I'm just gonna kind of skim through it real quick. It's been a busy summer. Mostly, biggest thing by far was this Infinite Campus migration over, which I've kind of spoken of before, but spent the bulk of this summer handling that. It's just a lot of involved, and it's kind of the basic, like the lifeblood of the school practically, with all the data that's stored in it and everything that goes along with it, everything we run out of it. So it was a big project, still ongoing. We're just kind of finishing up some things, getting ready for the beginning of school, but that was kind of the biggie for this summer. And just some of the stuff that went along with that was bringing the data over, reviewing it, make sure everything's looking right. So the ways that the different programs handle data structures, so just kind of massaging that and getting everything set up. It's not a simple copy paste, move stuff over. It's just a lot of stuff had to be kind of set up in ways the new system works. Setting up lunch accounting, getting all that set up and going, and then setting up a new parent and student portal. Last week I sent out the initial email for parent portal accounts, and I think last Thursday or Friday I sent that out, and I just checked a little while ago, and looks like sitting at about 500 parents have signed up for parent portal already. So I'm impressed that we've had a lot of signups in just a few days. So it's just this school year is going to be kind of a learning year. Everybody's kind of learning the system. We're lucky to have a few new staff members here that have used the Infinite Campus before to kind of help us kind of learn the system. But we're going to be kind of tweaking it and kind of learning it. So there's going to be some growing pains, but we'll get it all sorted out. This year, I'm just kind of focusing, get everything running, the essentials that we need, make sure everybody's getting their grades in there right, make sure lunch is running right, make sure everybody's getting their report cards, transcripts, everything, all that stuff runs right. But as the year goes on and we get more comfortable with it and learn what the new system can do for us and tweak it to make it better. And I'm hoping for next school year to have it even in a better place, and we'll be in a good spot. So I'm hopeful we'll get it all set up and working well for us. And like I said, just kind of working the basics this year. Next year, a lot of new things, new features, new efficiencies brought in to make it even better than what we had before. So along with the Infinite Campus, a few other normal summer projects, inventory and repair of middle school, high school student Chromebooks. As you had mentioned, the new replacement Chromebooks, we got about 110 new Chromebooks in the summer that I unpacked and configured and set up. So some of those will be going to middle school, high school students, some elementary, to kind of phase out, take out some old Chromebooks that we have. So we're kind of at the point we were kind of adding Chromebooks every year. Now we're finally getting to the point of the original ones that we got are getting old enough. We need to take them out of service. So now we're just kind of working into a life cycle, replacement cycle for Chromebooks now. So that's kind of what we're kind of moving towards right now. Reconnecting all district technology after room waxings. When maintenance goes around and waxes, unplugs everything. So I gotta go around and hook everything back up. Rewiring classrooms for teachers that decide they want their computer in a different corner of the room now. So you get all those rewires and stuff like that set up. Had a few projectors to kind of move around, change, and setting up some new staff and student accounts from our various systems. So August is about pretty much the busiest month of the year for me. So that's just kind of a little snapshot of what I've been up to these past couple months. Does anyone have any questions?
I did want to make a comment on purchasing 110 every year. We are getting into the point where we're just we're approaching the end of the life cycle for a lot of our equipment. So I think you guys heard this last year, me talk about the difference between a district that provides a student with a Chromebook and a one-to-one instructional environment. Part of the reason that probably not as much Cami because she's brand new, but we talked about really increasing our use of best practices in instructional technology. It's because we do spend a lot of money every year on Chromebooks and software and maintenance and repair. And for our students, especially at the high school level, that's where most of my experience is. To not really utilize those habitually in classroom instruction, to me, is a waste. And so we will be pushing the envelope and integrating technology into our instruction. Just simple things like, every teacher having a Google Classroom where students have resources to support their learning, that type of thing. We're not doing that a whole lot. We could save a lot of paper by pushing out assignments digitally. Student fills it out and submits it digitally, no paper. I think there in my last school experience, we went from a $25,000 a year copier budget when we moved one-to-one to about $4,500 to $5,000 a year. And that was mostly due to a change in instructional practices. So we will be pushing that envelope. You'll hear that in some of our instructional initiatives this year. And it's just to make the very best value of what is a fairly large bill that we get each year.
We don't do a lot of replacements for damaged Chromebooks, do we?
I've got, for the middle school, I've pulled out about 50 of them that needed repairs that weren't turned in during the year, that weren't reported. So that's I figured about 15% of our student Chromebooks that came back after I inspected them all after they turned in that needed repairs. So, and that's not counting the during the year repairs. So there's usually fairly significant amount of repairs that go on during the year. But when we having students pay for that, either if they don't get the insurance, that kind of helps quite a bit. When there's kind of a more accountability for it, they take a lot better care of it. Originally, when we had Chromebook cards and we weren't checking them out to individual students, they were getting broken a lot more. But once we kind of say, oh, this is your computer, this is your Chromebook, you're responsible for it, they take care of it a lot better. And a lot of it is, it's just normal, just accidents. Their kids are kids, they're growing, they're fumbling around. And like I said, the vast majority of it isn't intentional, and it's just accidents happen.
How old are your first round of replacements?
Those we got in, I believe, 2012, 13. So I mean, they were pushing like,
So they were
yeah, they
Okay.
were.
All right.
We pushed. All Chromebooks, they have an expiration date on them, which after a certain date, they won't get updates anymore. Where that dings us the most is state testing. Their programs on it, they won't run on if you're on a certain older version of Chrome OS. So our oldest ones, they haven't been able to run the state testing software in the past couple of
The
years.
batteries still work and everything.
They're
steam
steam
powered.
powered.
Yeah.
Those 2000 steam powered. I'm surprised that I thought they were a little newer than that.
Nah,
That's extraordinary.
yeah, we still had our first original Chromebooks that we purchased in the district that were still in service. So we definitely got our money's worth out of those. So
Wow, take one of those and put it in the archives, yeah.
They'll be collectible here in a few years. Somebody will buy them on eBay with a back.
Create a room damage. People pay you to come in and do trial.
All right, any other questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Superintendent report.
Awesome. As usual, kind of segment that into our big topics, start with culture and climate relationships. Had a great new staff orientation, really focused on setting the tone there. Tried not to overwhelm them. Couple of things that we want them leaving with is we are a very technically proficient staff, but we also like to enjoy our time when we're working. I think we did a good job on that as usual. We talked a little bit in ALT yesterday about how to improve that process, and we're going to ask our new staff to help us, what worked really well, what didn't work very well, and how we can improve new orientation, which is an integral part of our culture, which is taking our end user, our customer, and improving processes and being driven off that feedback. Had our ALT dinner this past weekend, really good dinner, enjoyed just spending some time as our first named persons, just eating dinner Saturday night out at the house. That's good. We'll continue to do that for staff this year. Also of particular note, our district and campus improvement plans will have culture, climate, and relationships as one of our 3 big goals: learning processes, and of course, culture and relationships. Personnel and staffing, we'll talk a little bit. I'll give you the behind the scenes on the cafeteria point of sale staff in our closed session. We did have the last minute resignation due to military deployment in social studies. We're very thankful that Mr. Hunt and Ms. Kruger have stepped in for long-term sub positions there until we can get that filled. Very much appreciate that. We do still have a few coaching positions still open. We have not had any applicants for the kitchen manager. I have some discussion regarding personnel in our closed session that might solve that, at least for the interim. One thing that's relative to personnel and staffing, we had a little bit of a mismatch in language regarding our secondary and elementary leave around holidays and professional developments, where we were kind of creating blackout days. So we don't want our staff not to be here for the few professional development days that we did have. So we took a look at that last month. Wanted to let you guys know that we made sure that language matched perfectly between elementary and high school. We have talked a little bit about our calendar for professional development too for next year. That will come later on. And then our kindergarten numbers are growing. We went down to 2 teachers there in kindergarten. What are we, around 18, 19?
18 for both classes right now, I believe is where it stands, and that is fluctuating daily, but people come in and.
Something we may want to entertain. I don't know that we'll get to the point we need to add a 3rd, but we might want to hire an aide here in the future if our kindergarten continues to expand. 18 to 20, most people would agree that's a pretty large class of kindergartners. Professional development, we talked a lot about that transition last year from a process to an actual PD plan. Had a great meeting with Sam Francis and the admin team last week. So they're going to do some edits to the professional development plan. I think you're really going to like what they've come up with. Our focus will be instruction, culture, and processes. Facilities. Great progress on our stadium bleachers. Our boosters have done a great job there. Our sidewalks are poured. Our fence is going to go up tomorrow. Central Missouri Fencing is going to come in and do about 350 feet that we took out there. And then they're also going to do the rail around the stadium bleachers, which is going to look great. Travis Greer painted our uprights red, and we're working on some banners for the top. I think it's going to look great. We'll talk a little bit about bond progress later in the agenda, and 3 initial options for getting our middle school out. Of course, we're doing a lot of grass mowing. We didn't do any for a long time, and now we're paying that price. Still focused on aesthetics. I want to thank the Bakers, Julie and Mark, for helping us out with our elementary entrance here. That looks a lot better. And then summer work, we didn't get to hire the 4 people that we wanted to, but we ended up getting, as it flushed out, about 1.3 or 1.4 full-time positions there. Got nearly every single classroom that requested painting, all of them in the high school, including common areas, all of them in the middle school, and everyone save a room or 2 in the elementary school got a fresh new paint job. If you get a chance during open house to just peek into some of our classrooms over there, I've watched teachers move in. They look really good. Miss Peterson, she had her accent wall, the red accent wall on the outside. That's unusual. Poked my head in there. The tables that you bought her looked amazing. She's just done a really good job with her classroom. I went back out, I was like, this room looks great. Our classrooms look good. I'm pretty proud of them. Of course, we're still gearing up for our athletics and programs for this fall. Looking forward to continuing to improve the stadium and other grounds, and then just getting kicked off with our fall sports. It's looking good. We're gonna have a good start to the year.
Questions? All right, very good. All right, discussion items. Site location, new middle school option.
So I'll frame this a little bit while Eric pulls it up there, because we have, I think, about 16 pages worth of graphics. There are probably 6 of these pages that will be of more interest to you than the others, so we'll kind of skip around to those. But one major point that we want to consider moving into this is, with each of these options, how tied are we to elementary, then middle, then high school? And by that, I mean in the order of buildings, and how much overlap, like we currently share a library 6 through 12, band choir room 6 through 12, cafeteria 6 through 12, administrative offices, nurse 6 through 12. We have quite a bit of shared space. So you're going to see our main high school footprint now is about 38,000 square feet. Our existing basement middle school is, I think, just a hair over 13,000 square feet. A few of the options that you're going to see allow for some growth. So each of them are spec'd at 20,000 additional square feet. In the 3 options that we'll take a look at, we've got to be asking ourselves, how much overlap will we allow, or how much do we prefer? And then, do we want it sequential? Elementary, then middle or high school, or do we want to keep our high school? Because although we talk about getting our students out, you'll see with a couple of their options that it really doesn't end up being a new middle school that's built. It's more like part of the existing high school is renovated for middle school space, and we add on to it, creating some additional high school classroom space. So it really ends up being high school classrooms that are truly new in 2 out of these 3 options. And it's just based on the limitations that we have with our site, if that makes sense. So you'll see this first page here. Those are just the existing buildings as they are now. Can you go to that next one? We'll click through quite a few of these. These are how we use the existing spaces now. Again, same existing spaces that we're using. The basement, 13,000 square feet. You
What's
can
going off to the left there?
Say again.
The left?
Well,
Is that like a utility tunnel, or what is that?
oh, I was curious about them.
That is HVAC. Oh, dang it, Cliff isn't here. That is, so in the upper left is, I see where you're going with this, all right. The upper left is our current middle school science classroom. In that little space, I know what it is. It doesn't even go all the way to the floor. It's actually raised about
Like a
4
little
feet.
utility tunnel?
Yeah, but I see where you're going there.
Yeah.
With that, and we have some mechanical, electrical, plumbing, HVAC stuff that's
Okay.
kind of tough back there.
All right.
Cause I think those HVAC units right outside the window there, they're like. right
Connected
here.
through. It is almost like a narrow, maybe 4 foot wide.
Gotcha.
When they renovated. When they put an outside entrance to the junior high, then they did work to accommodate the air conditioning.
Got it.
That's the upper floor. That is about, where was that at? 23,000 square feet is top floor of the field house.
Will those lockers ever be big? I mean, going through them, those lockers are kind of embarrassing, aren't they? Even
Very much.
if you renovated them the way they are, they're not big enough, are they?
I would defer to our coaches and
I
Chris.
mean, if you wanted to use them for football, you couldn't use them for football.
You wouldn't be able to use them for that. If you wanted to put in football lockers, there's no way.
Okay.
But I think for our indoor sports, I mean, they're great size. Again, I think we would need to outfit them with varsity size lockers. And we would easily be able to accommodate, indoor sports, but track. And football, there's no way, unless they were gutted and it became one big.
Okay.
I mean, we need new lockers, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
That's like,
The only locker-
like,
They're not.
it's the same stuff as when I worked here, I think.
yeah,
The only lockers that are full size, varsity size locker are in the varsity locker. room,
Right.
The top two.
Cause I mean, yeah, no, you're right. It isn't, it's, we absolutely positively need to put at the top of the. I don't know, that ought to be a priority. Yes, me, that's something needs to be done.
the visiting room lockers are the same ones that I used in the 5th grade.
We don't care about that though.
In like 1987. You're gonna make those into post office lockers?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're the same pastel kind of 1960s,
They don't,
1970s.
do they go all the way through and the bleachers?
Not under the bleachers, usually two of them are entrances from.
At one time, I think it was all one locker.
You could at one time.
It's joined by, there's a doorway, right?
Yes.
There's a doorway. It's like you can get through there.
Right, but I thought at one time it was all just one with no dividing.
No,
That predates all of it.
you're not questions.
And you're gonna see some of this, that's our current use of some of the rooms. You go to that, this one, that is our ag building. Our next slide, yeah, just shows where they're proposing we update the lighting. In one of our staff surveys, one of the number one things that staff said, they felt like there wasn't enough lighting at night for events or when they were working, so they just proposed some lighting locations there. Go ahead and go to that. This is the one that you want to look at. So in this first site location for middle school, this is, in my opinion, the only true standalone middle school offering that pulls them out of the basement, but then actually creates a new middle school portion to the high school or new middle school building. This is also the most expensive of all the options, just the site prep alone back here. I think we have a big electrical junction also that's kind of right in the corner in between the upper playground and the exit there. This is just simply 20,000 square feet of core classroom space to replace the classroom space that we'd be moving them out of. They would still use the existing located in the high school 9 through 12 cafeteria, library, nurse, band room, choir room, and we would have to make sure there was some admin offices there. In a particular point, we would probably need, this would require us to expand our admin team, in my opinion. Also, now we have a disconnected building. We would probably need to have a dedicated middle school admin team and probably need to consider a middle school counselor as well. We could limp along.
Would that mean like their own entrance too for parent pickup?
Potentially. I mean, we haven't gotten that far yet. This is just kind of a rudimentary. Here are your three options. A standalone, this is the most likely place that standalone would be, considering our site limitations, or two that are extensions. I don't know that this really accommodates for them being, we wouldn't have a road that goes back there and passes through. So they would more than likely still be going in through that main high school entrance and the field house in the mornings.
So the only benefit of this one is you don't have high school students and junior high school. It minimizes interaction of high school and junior high.
Yes,
Okay.
but I wanted that as an option. Another kind of negative for this plan, as you can see where the corridor comes along the east side of the existing elementary school, along that inside corner there, that is the elementary cafeteria. Under this plan, it has that slicing right through our existing elementary kitchen. And that is less than ideal also. There might be some other options there depending on the feedback we get here. I would ask them to explore that if we're interested mostly in a standalone building.
Okay.
Could you kind of fast forward, because everything else is incidental. The next would be to come off the front of the building. You'll see that kind of that outdoor space that's in the gap. That is purely to maintain the integrity of the exterior windows, which we were trying to keep as a matter of getting them out. So we would in fact have a courtyard in this. One of the most important aspects of this is it is the least expensive option. Major drawback would be that we're losing parking and we're losing a little bit of our existing bus loop. We can more than likely reroute that loop to cut across in front of where the field house is now. But again, we would lose probably 6 spaces if we decided to do that.
When you say it's the least expensive option, is it least sort of expensive enough that you could add a little bit of parking to offset the issue?
Well, part of the added parking, the answer to that is yes. You'll see to the right there, to the right of the existing gravel road, that there's a parking lot there that would replace some of that parking. And then in the upper left, what's now our lower playground, which we would not want to put a parking lot there because we just put our small elementary playground there that our PTO donated. My suggestion, feedback initial, was that we would move that over to where the loop is now, and that we would keep some sort of loop in the additional parking so that our pre-K could still pick up and drop off of there. But it would still provide some additional staff parking that would pull us out of the parking lots, if that makes sense. So we would lose some here, but we would pick it up on the east side, we would pick it up on the north side. And my initial feedback also would just come off that west side of our ag and art buildings and add some additional parking there. I don't like that we're losing any parking at all. This just keeps us where we're at, and I think we need more parking, quite honestly. But it is the least expensive option because this is the levelest place that we have to build. It is not my favorite option for that reason. We need double the parking spaces. We don't need to spend a lot of money to have the same or close to the same amount.
And all our utilities come in on the west, so we really probably don't have any utilities under the parking lot.
I don't think there's anything under there except some old stuff when our lagoon was over there.
But on the flip side, I mean, thinking about a mom with a young driver and going to JC when I was younger, I mean, we had to park far away and walk. Maybe it's not a bad thing to keep some of those high schoolers parked further away from where kids are coming in and out of buildings, but that's just my
We
thought.
suggested making, because you mentioned that on the left-hand side there of the ag building, that little grassy area, if we made that into actual student parking, and then they could just shoot out, that in there.
Right.
And then it would keep the students all away from where the actual patrons park.
Mhm.
How fast does that drop off?
We definitely have some site prep. I don't think it would be as bad as that upper playground, but it might be on par with the lift that we would have to do on the east side. You'll see in this next option, we're gonna have to add 4 or 5 feet there. My guess is we'd have to do something probably similar to that on the back edge if we added parking to the west of the career and tech building.
So the only thing I could think that might be unfortunate is school events, like for games and stuff. Like that would make it kind of unfortunate for the public, but I don't mind making the kids walk. That's just my opinion.
Is there any way to make a lower level parking garage across the? Right.
There is in the flat near our gate, but we don't own very far into the trees over here. It's pretty close. If we got another row, I would be surprised, and it drops off pretty fast. We would have to lift that to level. You might be able to speak to doing that kind of work far better than I could,
I
Sean.
think we'd have to look at it. I mean, from here, it looks really good, but I know walking back there, because
It just
it
drops
just
off.
drops off.
We just don't have our line isn't very far into those trees, so I don't know how much we get for a lot of site prep and very expensive site prep. My least favorite thing about this is that we're losing parking. I do like one element of it is I like that it kind of wraps our schools around the field house, because I do think that the field house, given some updates, has a ton of potential to really be a central jewel for us. So that is one thing. It almost kind of crowds us around there, but I really don't like the idea that we lose
That was
parking.
part of my thinking too. If we spend less money on the middle school, could we put some of that money back into the field house for air conditioning? Because I mean, that would be really nice to make that better.
Can you go ahead and go to the third option that looks similar to this, Eric? And then back up. So our third option in our long range planning, I think I talked to you guys about this before. Off to the east side there, we have 2 exterior doors that were built to be added onto over time. You can see that the envelope was actually meant to be expanded there. So that is one advantage. Another advantage of this plan is if we renovated our current high school's classrooms for middle school, then it allows our high school to kind of be on the backside. And that most northern door, well, that's where band and choir is. So they don't have to go through a middle school classroom hallway to get to band and choir, which is a big deal. And we were thinking that in that lower left-hand corner of the high school is our existing administrative offices. If we were to choose this, we would push our administrative office back to where counseling is now, which is actually larger than our administrative area up front, and move counseling up to the front. And so we would keep our administrative offices centrally located between the high school and the middle school. Really, the only thing we would have to go up to the front for is if in inclement weather, we wanted to get to the field house or to go to lunch. But other than that, they could walk right up the sidewalk to get to the gym, could maintain some separation. But then lunch they'll go to every day. I don't think either of the last 2 options really create any clean way of maintaining the separation.
The last one did a better job. This is the worst one for that. As far as middle school and high school
You
interaction.
think so? Well, I think the
Because the other one,
you get to cafeteria.
I mean, they're gonna interact, but they're not gonna walk down the hallway.
About the only thing that library, band, choir. Those
Yeah, they're
3
at the other end of the
things,
building.
it's almost
Yeah,
50-50.
Sure.
If you go with the first one, then you get the advantage of field house, the gym, and the administrative offices. If you go with this one, you
Okay.
get band, choir, and the library at the opposite.
And the ag buildings, our middle schoolers and high schoolers can head out there too, and they'll be on that end. So they don't have to go to the building to get to ag. And
We had talked about secure vestibules also as an option, and we did a little bit of footwork today here at the elementary, because yes, you have to be buzzed in, but once you're buzzed in, you're all the way in versus having a secure vestibule. You can buzz in, have an exchange, if they're dropping something off, they don't have to completely enter the building. If they're there to pick up somebody, there's a waiting area, you can go get your student for a doctor's appointment. We do have both those options. Or all 3 options if we currently at the elementary or with either of the second or third options. For expanding here at the front, we could still create a secure vestibule with little to no, I mean, relatively speaking. But it depends on what we're going for. I think our tolerance of how much they commingle. If we don't want them to commingle, then it's option 1, but it is the most expensive. I particularly don't like option 1. Probably my lead horse is actually this one, after really sitting down and thinking how we could route students and how we could flop the administrative offices. And it really beats out that second option to me, because I don't think we can give up parking space. We need to do just the opposite of that.
You were talking about having to put backfill in there to raise this option.
Yeah, they said 4 to 5 feet they would have to lift.
When they built the high school, I remember for whatever reason, they had to do a change order. Because they had to do considerable backfilling to get it level there, so.
If there was, I don't know if you guys noticed either, in each of the proposals, it says, new middle school or new high school, but it also says storm shelter. We do have the opportunity to recoup 75% of our related costs to meeting those storm shelter requirements. So we'll save a little bit of money there. I haven't gone through that process from this position yet. I don't think it just pays for 75% of the building. But the difference in cost between what you would build and making it a storm shelter, which could help us, 75% of that cost would be paid for. And generally, it's a cheaper option to go that route.
So I've got an engineer friend who's the expert on this. I mean, are they talking like a FEMA grant?
Yes.
So what's our architect telling us? Because they did a couple of them recently. But those are projects that have been on the books for like a year and a half. And then they haven't done a federal one in 3 years. And so before they do another state one, according to my contact who I trust, we need a federal disaster. And the closer to Osage County that federal disaster is, the better. And until that happens, he says there aren't going to be any more FEMA grants.
I don't know the answer to that, but I'll find out.
Okay.
What it is.
It sounds like something an architect would tell you.
Sure. Oh, the 75% thing?
Yeah.
I'll ask the question.
Because I don't think I think our engineer has dealt with our architect before.
Do you know when kind of that line post FEMA was? Because we did it at JC.
It would have been after the Jeff City tornadoes. That was the disaster that caused a round. And until we have another round of those, we're not gonna have any more FEMA money. So,
I'll ask the question.
and it wouldn't necessarily have to be, it could be flooding, it could be a drought, something like that, but it's gotta be a federal disaster. So all I'm saying that is, I don't want everybody in Lynn saying we're gonna have a tornado shelter and get 75% back. From what I know, that is not very likely. Unless we want to wait
We looked into
for
that
years.
from the elementary. And it didn't work out for whatever reason, because it was gonna be back in the corner over here.
And the only other downside to the FEMA shelter is you can't have very big windows. I mean, you're gonna have fairly small windows, but other than that, it'd be a great option if. And the other thing is option 3 wouldn't work, I don't think, on a FEMA shelter because we're so close to the current high school. And option 3 concerns me a little bit from it. I always go straight to constructability on it. You would actually have to have 3 or 4 feet between those two buildings. Because of the way the footings and everything else. I mean, our architect showed us all sorts of versions like this for the building project we're working on. And as soon as you get the engineers involved,
This is being option 3.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Our other 2 envelopes that we could attach to, if we didn't do the front or the side, would all be located right behind the existing elementary. We have an envelope or an egress on the northwest side of that and the northeast side, and I don't think either of those is necessarily viable. We're kind of limited on what we can do. Do we have a preference where we can get them to explore some details and present that in a way that we can ask a little bit deeper questions to formulate a preference?
I don't like adding on to the front. Yeah, we did like option 2. Yeah, I don't like.
I love it from a constructability point, because it is. There's not a lot of interaction between the two buildings, it's super simple to do. But I sat there in the parking lot tonight, just trying to look at it, trying to figure out what would that look like. My problem with it was, I love symmetry. And it creates an unbalance when you're in the parking lot that you have this big building sticking out in the parking lot over here, and then we don't have anything over here. It's like, there needs to be something over here, which will never happen.
This is our most interesting or our most interested option, this third option.
Outside of that is middle school or high school has to go all the way through the current school to get to cafeteria and gym.
In your research, you and I had talked one time about access to Highway 50. But then did you tell me a little bit later, or did maybe I dreamed this up, I don't know. that MoDOT would not be interested in us having access to Highway 50 from our property?
I think we were talking about asphalting 801 and potentially having an entrance over on Highway 50. That didn't seem, that wouldn't benefit MoDOT adding in our conversations about life, adding another entrance onto Highway 50 into an already problematic. And it would be extremely expensive, that area from here to the right of the apartment buildings, but to the left of 801 is just a big ravine and ditch. So it's a very expensive option. It really doesn't help our traffic flow. And I don't think for that reason, MoDOT necessarily, actually, Lord, you might be able to speak to this better than I can.
Yeah.
That would be real attractive to them. Would be for me from a marketing standpoint and an access to campus, but
Is there a reason why we are completely just saying like middle school's going in this? Why wouldn't we consider moving high school and middle school classrooms around to make it to where they're more separated? Like, I'm just throwing this out there, like maybe in the back of the school, that's more like the middle school stuff. I don't know how many rooms we would have to have. And then towards the front and towards the ag building, we would have more of the high school kids. Like, have we considered splitting it up a little bit, or?
so what you've seen in the second and third option, both of those would be 100% high school. And for us, the entire existing high school, it looks like, oh, wow, wait a minute, why are we using up all this old high school space just for middle school? But again, once you get that, ding that 38,000 square feet for cafeteria, hallways, our administrative offices, band, choir, and library is huge. It's not all that much bigger than the 20,000 existing square feet that we have.
I
And
was
so,
thinking, I was confused, and I was thinking we were saying it was just for middle school, but we're actually for this one moving all high schools classrooms into it.
yes.
Okay.
And to further complicate it, in terms of thinking forward 10 years, 15, 20 years, we had discussed at one point potentially moving fifth grade with them to create space in our elementary. So in one of those options, when you look through there, they just took a stab at where would seventh be, what would eighth be, where would sixth, and where would fifth be? And that would take up all of our existing high school classrooms, plus have 4 spare non-committed classrooms that we would probably use for our middle school special education, quite honestly. The main purpose when we started this was just to get 6th through 8th out of the basement. It wasn't necessarily to build a new middle school. It was to get 6th through 8th out. And so that ends up being, which is part of the reason why we didn't want to put middle school in this second and third option, because then they have to get to those common spaces. They have to go through kind of high school territory every time. And I think that would be preferable to most people.
For parking in a perfect world, we'd have all our parking over on the west side, wouldn't we? We wouldn't have high school kids coming any further than, say, the elementary building.
We could fit them. We don't have
I
enough.
mean, we'd have to acquire property to do that. But if we could do that, would that make option 2 more palatable or not?
More parking is always of interest to me.
What if you still, with this third option, you still put that teacher parking lot down by the preschool roundabout? Would move some of the teacher parking.
Easier access and then the back doors.
Yeah.
You don't have a person, Lions Park.
No, I'm talking behind the nursing homes,
Oh, that.
which would keep kids
That makes sense there.
way out of the way. I mean, it would keep them from. But I mean, that's an accident waiting to happen eventually, I think, isn't it or not? You feel good, pretty safe, comfortable with the students and the buses and the
Our high
kids getting in
schools-
and out of cars.
The way we manage that now is high school leaves before buses do, and they all go out that west side down the gravel road.
Which isn't great either,
No,
because
it's
now
not.
we're bringing a bunch of high school kids onto what we know is a dangerous, could be a dangerous intersection. And I don't know that we have a lot of accidents, but I know, Driving it all the time, you gotta be darn careful about it.
Yeah, and the reason that we're having a hard time keeping puddles and potholes from down there is how quickly our kids race down that gravel road to the intersection with 801. They're all on the brakes, potholes, braking bumps everywhere, picking up dust. Less than ideal, but in order to keep them from crossing after school, that's kind of what we've done for the last few years.
The only way to eliminate that is keep them all the way to the west. Does that do it or not?
How many parking spaces last year?
I have to look, we have, you can start at 300s, we probably have,
Less than 100, it has.
yeah, I mean, we only have majority are juniors and seniors that have parking spots, and all of them truthfully aren't full back there either. But those back to layers or what our parking spots are for high school.
And until you get
Stop when it
stoplights.
starts to turn.
Until we get stoplights over here, I wouldn't want my kid. I would rather than go down the gravel road and hit the highway.
That'll happen next summer.
Could happen anytime.
No, I mean, as far as on the west side, the stoplights will happen next
gotcha.
summer.
I mean, honestly, I would, if I have to come out here in the morning, I go out the county road because that's actually easier to get on and off of than turning down, trying to get off of CC.
Yeah,
I mean, it is honestly a little bit safer than that mess.
That's gonna change the Lori, right?
next year.
Next summer. And it will, the solution is actually gonna take care of it. I think.
Do we feel like we're leaning towards option 2, but want to have an answer for more parking? Is that what I'm hearing?
I don't know about that, but I wouldn't eliminate 2 because of a parking concern. I can figure out how to fix the parking concern if that's the reason we're eliminating it.
I would eliminate option 1 for sure, that is in the back, just because I don't know how that's gonna.
It's not gonna show very well. I mean, we want a school we can be proud of.
Yeah.
If we bury it down on the bottom, it's kind of like our current elementary school. We got a really nice elementary school, but nobody really knows it because it's.
I feel like
It's very-
this one, I mean. To me, it almost. You're gonna, I mean, that one, I would just cut off the parking lot completely, no drive through there. I mean. By the building and the grass, between the building and the grass, towards the ag building. I mean, I would think you could make I don't know what you would use that for, but I just see too many kids, not even just kids, as parents flying through there. And you're not gonna be able to see very well, and a kid comes out that building to come over to the ag building.
There's about 65 parking spots now.
I would think option 3 might be the best to consider, only because if we want to keep growing our school long-term wise, and I'm talking 15 years out, I mean, seems it might be easier to build onto that than it would be option 2.
Which is probably the reason I like option 2 better. Option 3 it feels like you're stabbing something on there that might eliminate. How are you gonna add on to that?
Well,
Versus you could go a lot further out on option 3 than what we're doing. We're limiting option 3 because of what we're doing forward, maybe or not. How far does our property line go over?
See where the new road back drive is? The fence is just right on the other side of that, definitely within 30
But not a
feet.
whole lot more.
and why don't we go to the end of the building? I'm like Sean, I like symmetrical. It looks really weird to be cut off. Looks like a classroom in the corner there.
On the north side.
Yeah. Do we have a reason for that? Or they just,
Band room windows right there.
Maintain those exterior windows, but we also have that we're covering up library windows on that end too. So I don't know that it's that. It might just be that they're estimated. So they have a formula that drives how many square feet based off our enrollment data from the past years. What is our anticipated growth? So they use that formula to say, okay, we're gonna be good for the next 10 or 15 years at least, if we have 20,000 additional feet. And so more than likely, the shape of that is just dictated by how many
Can you
20,000.
put a gym on the back of it?
Real estate, Chris.
I'm just saying, I think a little bigger than the elementary would fit right on the back of that corner there where the empty space is.
Were you reading this list?
If we're,
I mean, you make a good, I mean, where would you put like a performing arts type of center if you were going to add something like that?
We actually talked about that earlier today, and we thought it was that northeast corner and almost use our existing band room as an entry hallway. You know how you have that, you just blow that wall out that goes into the hallway, and then you create the performing arts center or your your stage and all that in the back, and include and maintain that space as band room also during the day. And we would just use the old classroom as a pass through, and that administrative office and storage would then, we would just flip it to be accessible to choir. And then we would have band and choir back there right next to an auditorium type facility.
I will just say from an administrative opinion and perspective, I understand like the parent preference to keep middle school and high school separate because of obvious reasons. But this, to me, maintains that integrity of like a campus where we can still help each other out and it feels like one unit. Whereas the other ones feel a little bit more segregated, a little bit more where we would have to seriously consider adding positions and adding costs that are gonna go beyond a bond. So this, I'm not, pointing one out over the other, but we just had some good conversations of maintaining that cohesiveness that I know we all really appreciate as far as.
I think with this version, rearranging the way they have these classrooms, and I know this is just for a sample and they just threw them on here, but if you put the 7th and 8th grade closer to where the high school would maybe have to come in to go, and put the 4th and or 5th and 6th grade in the other hall where they would have a lot less access, and make sure the high school only came through this one hallway to go to lunch or to the gym, and limit it, you would have at least the older kids, if there wasn't interaction, it's not gonna be much.
Right.
And our middle school does share like business and
Right.
facts and stuff, and I was wondering if we could put like those. Either in those 3 classrooms there by the library or somewhere
Right.
closer to that middle.
So it's
So that middle school can come this way, high school can come this way, and then they don't really have to.
all
intermingle.
be in the hallway at the same time.
And even if middle school had to go out to the ag building, I mean, you just shoot out the door, you wouldn't even have to go into the high school wing.
Right.
It is interesting, if you look at it, they've made option 2 or 3, so they work together. I mean, you do 3 and then down the road you do 2.
Could do too.
I mean, if you look at all the sight lines, they line up perfectly. I mean, they're very intentional about that. Other than I don't understand the slanted front to it. I mean, I'd square it off, but. And I'd move it all the way as far to the east as you could. Because you've got dead space there, otherwise you're never gonna do anything with, so you might as well push it out as close to that road as you can.
Yep. I agree.
Yeah.
So we want to see more information on options 2 and 3. That mitigate some of our concerns. I think so. Are we leaning 2 or 3 more so than the other?
I like 3.
3.
I'm only switch 3 right now.
I know my concern with 2 is I like the idea of the little courtyard. But number 1, what will we do with it? And number 2, if we make it really, really nice the first few years, is it gonna be maintained? Are we putting like plants and stuff in it? Or eventually, like I've seen some courtyards in other places I've been, that they're just fall apart after years and nobody keeps them up. So then the courtyard just kind of looks.
Yeah, I'd rather see it be used for like a study area. You see the kids sitting in the cafeteria because they got free time. I'd rather see them make it into like a networking type area for that purpose versus having it open, but.
It's also gonna be surrounded by classrooms, so when
Yeah.
it's way far away from the cafeteria, so it's not like they can have fun lunch or. You can't do a whole lot of vocal learning with it being surrounded by classroom. I don't know how loud it would be. I just feel like it would echo with all the brick and building around it. And it's limited on use.
And with two, I'd like to see more how they're going to connect that, like this one, you can kind of see how they would connect it to the building. I'd like to see more detail, not just the blocks. I want to see actual, hallways, classrooms, how it would actually connect to the building, was my question with number two.
I'd like to see the same for this. Because my gut feeling is, you're gonna have to put a separate, I don't think it's any cheaper, because I don't think an engineer is gonna let them use that mating wall. So then you got for separation between the two buildings.
Maybe we end up with a building that looks more like two that's on the side instead of in the parking lot. That runs around, kind of like that, actually.
We're definitely exploring expanding our current high school. We have a few focus areas, one being, especially with option two. We've still got to pick up that parking in some place, but how we mate to the existing structure versus our new structure, and how classrooms are oriented, and whether or not we can come up with a building operational plan that maintains a degree of separation that might not exist overtly, but through our operating procedures will, meaning we could have one-way hallways or junior high only hallways, something like that. I'm interested in seeing how we parse out those red blocks also. What does that look like?
I keep thinking if you're wanting to keep the middle school and high school kids separated, I think this is the better one to keep them separated. I think this would be the easiest way to do it, just because the library is down here and all students use the library. So it'd be hard to keep them separated the other way.
If I come back with more options and more details for 2 and 3 for you guys to parse through, you would be satisfied with that?
Will they give you an elevation on 2 and 3 at this point or not?
We don't have one now.
Will they
I
give you
can
one?
ask for one.
I'd like 2, I would like to see what 2 looks like. I have a feeling it won't look great. We've already got a middle or a high school that looks pretty decent when I cover it up.
I'll get one.
Then I'd ask him how many square foot. Is there a reason why? I'd ask them why they had that angled front. Why don't they square it off?
Because of
Where
the angles on
building
the
3.
elementary school, it ties it together.
Where is it?
On the elementary, there's this angle from where the office is, and then there's an angle on the other side.
Oh. And I'd see that if you were gonna put a building in front of the building.
I'm just saying,
That's, yeah, I see it from an elevation, but I don't think I'd see it.
because it matches.
I looked at these more as just kind of from 50,000 square foot. Do you want it on the front or on the side? Which kind of what a block would look like on the side. Proportionally, if it were to be 20,000 square feet, we could do it that way, but I think you can move it backwards, forwards. I think you should widen it. I do agree. I think you make a really great point. We've got a property line over there. Why aren't we using that space?
Push it over there.
Why aren't we making that a little bit deeper? It might just be how big a classroom is with a hallway down the middle of it. If you push it 12 feet, you just got a 6 foot, 2 classrooms that are 6 foot wider than they would be, or telling, like over calculation that they have. Per square footage per student or classroom, I guess. Awesome.
Okay, we
And discussing, all right.
done?
Yeah.
I mean, you're right. This is just some triangle or rectangle shapes on the paper. It doesn't mean much yet, but before you start.
I think the discussion's good also because it gets me to think of the angles that you guys are gonna take, the questions that you're gonna ask, the things that I need to be prepared to answer. So I think it's a good discussion. It'll at least eliminates that first option, which was not a favorite at all. Again, I do like the separation, but everything else I don't like.
So, you know, and then I'm thinking, okay, so then I think, all right, if you would eventually do something for performing arts. How do you get to a performing arts? Anything when it's way in the back of the building? I mean,
You'd have
that stinks.
Yeah.
So it really needs to be wrapped alongside of that building, going all the way to the front of that building if you're ever gonna do it. Because you would want to tie it to your band room, which is that second hallway back there. If the second little notch there, that's your band room hallway, you'd want to tie it to that. But you really can't go backwards. If you're a patron, you're gonna, well, I guess you can walk, you can zigzag, I mean, you gotta zigzag up and down the hallways to get to it, which. Feels
Not
super
as
weird,
yeah.
as if you would just walk in the front of the building. And you had a performing arts center right there.
If you made it longer and with the classroom space in the back. You could put people from the front row and walk to that.
If there's a silver
Yeah.
lining to our current design, it's that if you remove the storage between choir and band, you have space for 2 classrooms relatively easy. And so for us to move choir and band, say
Somewhere else.
yes, somewhere else, just say if we put it on the front of the building eventually, where option 2 was, well, now it's immediately available, and you really haven't incurred a whole lot of cost. Kind of reconfiguring the existing, because it really is just one big room split diagonally with some storage closets.
True. Over the nice thing about the backside of that, it drops, you'd follow grade.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Going down.
Yeah.
It would work in reverse of the cheaper option 2, because we would have to create grade, or you would have a flat auditorium.
And maybe that's a better question. Okay, we want to put a performing arts center in, and I mean, it's not probably gonna be during any of our tenures, but let's say we did. Poke that in there somewhere in a real location. Because the easy answer is back behind everything, but the location stinks.
If we did option 2 and we reserve that right-hand side for a pass-through parking lot. Where option 3 is now, so think about option 3 being a parking lot all the way to the back. Then we could put an auditorium or performing arts center back there on the corner like we were talking about. And then we would have additional parking right there where the road and option 3 is.
Yeah.
If we went with option 2, then you can park right on the performing arts center. And get additional parking for staff or students that's kind of pushed this way.
No, I think. Hunter, you said, why don't we push the building all the way to the back? Take it all the way out to the road and save space. Up in the front.
Oh, that's not bad. Got to figure out how to maintain access to the back. We want to at least have like a service.
Still have that road, but just that between. The edge of the new building and the road is quite a bit. You would still have a road there.
I like that idea too. So Honey, you're saying kind of where the white letters are on option 3 all the way to the front of the road. If we push the red back, then our auditorium in the future could be right there. I like that idea.
Yeah, that's what I said. You could make the back be classroom space.
That would be nice. You wouldn't see it. I mean, you wouldn't see our new fancy school easily, but. That would allow you to do 3 phases eventually. The first phase would be that building that we're talking about, then you could do a performing arts center, and then phase 3 would be the one that in front of the building.
Assuming we need to do one in front of the building. Maybe
Yeah.
we don't.
Maybe
We
we'll
don't
never
ever
get
get
there.
I'll take your feedback.
Okay. I think we killed enough time with that one.
Yeah.
All right.
Next one, bond steering committee.
Anybody have any comments on that? I mean, the size look, what do you have, like 10 to 12 or something on there? What
12
was
to 15, are you okay? The biggest question is, do you want to pick a couple of people in the community? We had discussed that option before, or do you want me to pull together a committee from just local people that are involved? I'm good either way.
I would say if any of us have anybody we want to nominate, you want to just send that to Bob directly instead of having a discussion here in the board meeting about that. That's good. Sound good?
Yep.
Okay. Anything else we want to talk about there? Other than to say it's great that we do want, I mean, we're sitting here talking about it here. We do want the community's feedback, which is the purpose of the bond committee to get
Absolutely.
because we've talked about it, we've talked about this building, but we've also talked about things, and we've heard it tonight, things like adding air conditioning to the field house, other parking improvements, that type of thing. And the question will become very quickly, depending on what cost of building is and how many square foot, would we have any money left over to do some of those type of things? And where are the priorities? Depends if you were over there on a 100-degree day, whether or not you think the field house is a priority. And
I think
I'd say
the field house
everybody
is
that
priority.
was over there, was that a week ago or 2 weeks ago, would have said.
Yeah,
air
for
conditioning
athletic
was a
meeting,
priority.
if we could hold the vote this graduation. And just to include air condition, that was probably the most commented on thing of all last year was, please can we get air conditioning in the field house?
All right. First reading of regulation 342.
So as I gave you in the background summary, Missouri Ethics Commission requires us to update every year. It just really changed and added that we have to file our personal statements by May 1st or forfeit candidacy. And they added that, well, no later than May 1, and the failure to file that financial interest statement would, before the deadline, would result in them being removed from the candidate ballot. That's it. That's all.
That's MEC's requirement anyway. They file by May 1. They're just putting in the policy now.
Just putting it in the policy. I had Ed Council craft that language. I'm sure they pulled it from other school districts. It's pretty common. We just have to do a first reading and adopt it.
Done. ASBR.
ASBR, the big takeaway there, I know some of you took a little bit more detailed look. What I was most interested in, I anticipated a 34.6% ending fund balance. We ended up at 37.11, which is 2.51% ahead. Each percentage point is about $56,000 of our fund balance. So that gives us about another 125,000 plus our AV, which is another 123. Although I want to be very careful, I anticipated 2% increase to AV. So we only get about 75 or 80,000 actual increase in comparison to what we presented in budget. But it does give us a couple hundred extra $1,000 that we didn't anticipate having this 23-24 school year. Any comments on kind of finalized expenditure? We did a lot with facilities and Fund 4 this past year. I think about 100. I think our transfer was 128,000. We spent a lot.
Pretty good place.
We are. I'm pretty excited, and we did some great things for us with salaries, benefits, pay, wages. We increased everybody's supply budgets. I know activities are. You can speak to this, Chris. I've liked seeing all of the new equipment coming in for our athletics. If you haven't gotten a chance to look at our new volleyball system where we can actually have 2 courts for tournaments, that is a massive upgrade. It's really nice. I'm pretty proud of what they put in there.
I did notice in the budget or the approval of bills, there was quite a bit of athletic spending on there, more so than we've ever seen before, which we haven't spent anything before, so.
For the next couple of years, we're gonna do a lot of catch up, but I mean, just even the small improvements we've made between kind of the end of last year and going into this year. Our coaches, our kids are very excited about, this upcoming season, their seasons, so it's just awesome. It's awesome to see them like super excited about, these changes and having the equipment ready before the season, right? Not having to stress about having the essentials for, so I don't know, just.
I walked through the field house this morning and literally a group of onlookers like, Glenn, did you see our new net? And they were like kids on Christmas morning. And I'm like, let me see it, and that was just unprompted. I was like, good morning. They're like, hey, you guys see, like, they are so thrilled just to have some, and they're proud of it, which you guys are around high schoolers. They're not excited about too much, especially this was at 7 a.m.
Even
So I was super excited.
I know,
for that.
even our softball, baseball field, our coaches, both coaches now, we had torrential downpour, right, for 2 weeks. And the field drained -2 areas that I'm reaching back out, but there were minimal areas, right? There wasn't, we had to cancel games. It was something that with a little bit of work, we could, there's some quick dry in there. We still have those games. So we're super pumped. We're very thankful for allowing us to do that work. So.
I'm also excited for our boosters who have been carrying a lot of water here the last few years. I'm excited for them to boost versus provide essentials for our programs. That's more fun. When you're volunteering and donating, it's a lot more fun to buy that really cool stuff, knowing that we've already taken care of our basic equipment needs. So I'm pretty excited about that too.
All right, anything else on ASBR? Approval items.
We're maintaining 275 operating levy, $1.05 on our debt service levy. And our 275, like you had mentioned before, is at floor, so we can't get any lower than that.
Can I get a motion to approve the levy for 23-24?
I'll make a motion to approve the tax levy for 23-24.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, the same. Approval of the bus routes.
No change, but we have to do it annually. It's the same bus routes we've had, barring we have somebody register that we haven't anticipated yet, but we should be on the same route schedule that we've had for quite a few years.
Discussion? Can I get a motion to approve the bus routes?
I'll make a motion to approve the bus routes.
Second?
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, the same. This is an interesting one. Approval of the propane bid.
Yeah, we did have 3 bids submitted. MFA, Locksmill, and AA propane. All 3 submitted bids. Of those 3, the most expensive was Locksmill at $1.53 a gallon at $1.40.
MFA was $1.43, Locksmith was $1.59.
$1.59. I should probably have mine. Notes. So MFA was $1.43, $85 an hour for labor of service, free pressure test. Locksmill was $1.59 per gallon, but our lowest bid was AA propane at $1.37.9 per gallon. 10,000 gallon for the 6 tanks, which is about what we spend actually use. Swap out tanks for no charge. The interesting part for me was they were willing to extend a bit of a corporate rate to all of our staff members of $1.42.9, which actually beat out the corporate rate for MFA in terms of what they were willing to give to the school. I think that could be a nice ancillary benefit to our staff in the winter months when they're enjoying our tax or our cost break. If we were to go with AA.
Sure.
Where's
I'm not-
double out of?
California. Gentleman named Randy Roush.
I know absolutely nothing about them. I mean, are we?
I've called around a little bit.
Okay.
They have a sterling reputation. They've been doing nothing but growing. And I think that was their motivation for moving over this way.
Are they trying to cut us? I mean,
They were voted Missouri's best propane.
really? So are they
They're
working this way, or I mean, are they putting in a location closer?
I'm not sure what they're doing as far as infrastructure, but they shot us a great price, and I really love the idea that they thought of our staff giving a tax break. Or not, I keep saying a tax break, a benefit to them. Although if we could give them tax break, that would be great.
I mean, I'll go on the record and say I would have loved to use the local company, but given the. That differential, I don't know that we can.
Pretty significant difference between Locks Mill and AA.
And they're gonna swap out, I mean, we must lease our tanks, I take it,
Yes,
okay. And there's no additional money for. Lease on the tanks.
Nope.
All right. Can I get a motion to approve AA propane as our propane provider for the next year?
I move we approve AA propane as our provider for next year.
Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Further discussion? All right. Hearing none, all those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, the same. Approve of final reading of policy 410.
policy 410 is moving our board meetings to the third Thursday. 3 readings of that. This is our action reading or final reading of it. We would take a vote on whether we're going to adopt that or not.
Can I get a motion to approve policy 410?
I'll make a motion to approve policy 410.
Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, the same. That third read and finally passed. Approval of the Missouri compliant plan.
I assume you all read all this.
They give us a super short version of it.
Yes, I'll make it quick. It is a yearly requirement that we adopt not but a compliance plan. We have a few different options on what we could do here. We could accept Missouri state plan. I don't know a district that doesn't. State that doesn't accept it. They do give us a little bit of guidance if we want to completely write our own for whatever reason. It would be my recommendation that we do not do that and we accept the Missouri state plan for special education compliance.
Okay, can I get any questions? Can I get a motion to approve the Missouri compliance plan?
I move we adopt the state recommended, is that the way you do it? Is that the way to say it? State recommended, Missouri state recommended compliance plan.
Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, the same. All right, with that, thank you very much. Announcements of the next regular meeting will be on
The 21st.
September 21st,
That's Thursday.
a Thursday.
I was super confused when I was on my phone.
With that, I'll entertain a motion to go to closed session, adjourn and go to closed session.
I move we adjourn to closed session pursuant to RSMO 610.021 subsections 13 relative to personally identifiable employment information, 3 personnel actions, 6 personally identifiable student information, 1 legal actions involving the public body and or privileged communications among that body and its representatives or attorneys.
Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Roll call vote. Mark,
Yes.
Lori, Naomi,
Yes.
Donna,
Yes.
Brett,
Yes.
Jamie.
Yes.
And I, yes, we are now adjourned to closed session.